Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I want to do this live stream. I started it back when I was in Las Vegas a couple of days ago, but due to technical difficulties, I'm going to do this live stream again. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I truly appreciate your support. So you all know that not too long ago, I did an interview with Obsidian, and we were talking about his proposal to reach some kind of compromise dealing with this Pookie and Ray Ray situation. So I want to take time to talk about that interview, share my thoughts. And the reason why I'm doing this is because quite a few of my subscribers asked me to do so. They said, well, I want to hear your opinions about what Obsidian had to say. Because as you all know, during that interview, for the most part, I just asked him questions. I did not really debate him. I wanted him to put his positions on the record, respond to various questions that I had for him. I didn't bring him on the show to challenge his viewpoints or to engage in a debate with him. So because of that particular format, people had questions. They wanted to know my response to a lot of the things that the brother had to say. And that's what I intend to do in this particular live stream right now. And also, I want to let you all know that what I'm going to do is after this live stream, I'm going to do an open discussion about a lot of the topics that are raised during this particular live stream right now. So if you are interested in joining that discussion, please let me know, and I will email you the link to the Hangout. So after this Hangout that we're doing right now, I'm going to have another Hangout. There's going to be an open panel discussion about a lot of the things that I've raised right now dealing with relationships. So I hope that you all are willing and able to tune into that. And also, if you are interested in joining that discussion, please let me know right now, and I'll be glad to send you a link. I just have to be familiar with your channel. It doesn't matter if you produce content or not. Just as long as I'm familiar with you, I'll be happy to have you join the panel discussion. So let me see if anyone has tuned in yet. Shout out to Sister. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to Gun Streets. Thanks for tuning in. Gun Street said that he loved the interview. I'm glad that a lot of people enjoyed that interview. I think that we had a great discussion. Now, there were points, obviously, that I agreed with Obsidian on, and many points that I disagreed with him on. So in this particular live stream right now, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I agree with him on, and I'm also going to address the things that I disagree with him on. And I'm probably going to focus primarily on the points of disagreement. Because those are the most controversial areas. And in fact, I disagree with most of what Obsidian was saying during that particular live stream. Now, this live stream I'm going to do right now is going to be respectful. I'm not going to disrespect the brother because I do respect the fact that he did come onto my channel and express his views, share his thoughts. And I think that, instead of bad mouthing somebody when they're not around and not able to defend themselves, I would rather have, if I'm going to badmouth somebody, I'd rather do it in their face and right in front of them instead of, waiting to after the fact to do so. So this will be respectful. It will be a respectful disagreement with a lot of the things that he had to say. The first thing I want to address is this whole issue of personal responsibility in Black women. Now, one thing that Obsidian complained about was this. He talked about the fact that you have some Black women who decide to date the so-called Pookies and Ray Rays, and then when things go bad, what they do is they attack all Black men and basically say Black men ain't shit. And you all have heard that before, that particular expression. You have many women here on YouTube who have basically turned that into a cottage industry where they basically spend all their time and energy bad-mouthing Black men and talking about how Black men don't do this and Black men don't do that. And basically, it's a situation where a lot of these women choose the wrong type of Black men to be with, and then they want to complain about it, and they want to make generalizations about Black men. Now, I think that he made some valid points in that area. I mean, you can't complain about all black men being womanizers when you keep selecting those types of men. You can't complain about black men being disrespectful and, insensitive and stuff like that when you choose to constantly be with those kind of men. Men that are going to be disrespectful, men that are going to, call you outside of your name, and men that, in many cases, that are physically abusive. Like, some women are so dysfunctional that they identify like arguments with manhood. Like, if a man is argumentative, or if he's confrontational, if he checks them constantly, or, is verbally abusive. In the minds of some women who are dysfunctional, they view that as masculine behavior. They view that as a man being a real nigga and stuff like that. Unfortunately, a lot of women have that perspective. And because of that, perspective, they tend to make these bad decisions. And then once they make these bad decisions, they want to badmouth black men as a collective. Now, there are some women that make a distinction. As I said during the interview, some women that will say, well, I'm not talking about all black men. I'm only talking about this segment of dysfunctional black men. But you do have women that just make generalizations. So in that respect, I think that Obsidian had a valid point with respect to that. In terms of how he characterized it, in terms of making it seem as if most black women choose these types of men, I think that that was wrong. I don't think that there's any proof, any kind of scientific or, empirical evidence that most black women choose to be with so-called Pookie and Ray Ray. Now, just to let you all know, I'm sure by now most people know what the term Pookie and Ray Ray refers to, but just for those who don't know, it basically is a term, those are terms to describe dysfunctional black men. It can include black men that are involved in gangs, or black men that are drug dealers, or just your average, stereotypical type of black man that's trifling, is not, ambitious, is, not a hard worker, somebody that sits around playing video games all day, somebody that's dependent on a woman instead of being a provider and a protector. So that's just a broad overview of what a Pookie and Ray Ray is, what they are. So I wanted to provide that statement. I think that he made some valid points in respect to that personal responsibility piece dealing with black women, and also with this issue of some black women who have these bad experiences with the so-called Pookies and Ray Rays, basically trying to generalize and attack all black men. So I'm going to look at your comments, and then I'm going to proceed to the next point. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Shout out to Dave Bowman. Again, shout out to Gun Street. Shout out to Isaiah Smith. Shout out to Psycho. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so let's get into the second point that I want to talk about. And that's this, this idea that you can shame black women into being with you. I listened to Robert Perkins' video where he was talking about this, basically talking about how these corny guys, these lames and stuff like that, basically want to shame black women into being with them by, talking about how bad Pookie and Ray Ray are. And I think that that's a pathetic type of tactic to use. And, during the interview, Obsidian basically admitted that there's, he thinks that that's fine to shame black women into being with certain types of black men, shame them into being with guys like him, or the so-called educated lames and stuff like that. And really, I think that that's a sign of desperation, to feel that you are so desperate that you have to literally shame black women into being with you. You have to make them feel bad about themselves so that they will be with you. I think that that's pathetic. I think that that is a trifling type of attitude to have. And I think that it really makes you look bad as a man to put yourself in a position where you are dogging black women because they don't want to be with you. In a lot of ways, that's similar to the guys on the street that do these cat calls and stuff like that. And when a woman rejects those cat calls or their advances, they proceed to curse the woman out, or in some cases, attack a woman. I saw some story about some guy that attacked a woman because she rejected him at a club. In a lot of ways, when these people try to shame black women for their choices, for not deciding to be with them. They are just like those guys on the street that want to curse out a woman that doesn't accept their advances or their cat calls. You know, the same, they remind me of that guy that threw that little boy off the balcony because a woman, you know, women have rejected him. It's an act of desperation, and it's pathetic. It makes you look literally like a loser, you know, and it makes you really epitomize what people are talking about when they talk about educated lames and cornballs and all that kind of stuff, because you look corny as hell. You look like a loser when you feel like you should bash women or shame women into being with you. You know, frankly, I wouldn't want to be with any woman that I have to shame and force to be with me. I would want a woman to naturally be attracted to me, naturally love who I am, you know, my personality, my various qualities and character and values and stuff like that, as opposed to forcing some woman to be with me, like twisting her arm and shaming her and basically acting like a caveman and knocking a woman over the head and dragging them into a cave, dragging them by their hair. I mean, that's basically the kind of mentality that these people are projecting when they talk about shaming Black women into being with them. So that's one point that I had to make. Another point is this, like a lot of these guys, you know, that for instance follow Obsidian or even Obsidian himself, like they have this entitlement mentality. They think that because they haven't violated the law or because they're educated or because they have some kind of trade or they're making good money or something like that, they assume that because they have those various characteristics that that gives them entitlement to any woman that they want to be with. You know, this whole idea that because you're effective, that you are somehow entitled to be with any woman that you want to be with, whether she's attracted to you or not. I think that that is, you know, an elitist type of attitude. You know, I think that it's arrogant. And I think that it's foolish. Nobody is entitled to be with anyone, any woman. You know, you're not entitled to be with anyone. A person has to choose you. You know, a woman has the right to choose who she's going to be with. And just because you have some kind of degree or whatever, that doesn't mean that you have every right to be with that woman, that you, even if she don't want to be with you. And, you know, it's important to note that just because you have certain things on your resume, a certain work experience or a certain education, that doesn't mean that you have the type of character that is compatible with that particular woman. It doesn't mean that you are the kind of man that she's attracted to. And attraction is a big part of any kind of relationship. Chemistry is a big part of any relationship. It's not just like some job interview where you look whether or not somebody has this education or this degree and this salary and stuff like that. That's not how most people pick their mates. They don't just pick their mates solely based on their resumes. It's about personality. It's about people vibing together. It's about shared values and, you know, character traits that people have. All of those things, you know, like some people have a preference for somebody that's funny. You know, they want somebody, some people want people that are intelligent or, you know, have certain moral values, like shared religious values, for instance, or non-religious values, shared political beliefs, and all those things. So the notion that you are somehow entitled to women, you know, every single woman that you want to be with, you know, I just think that that's absurd. You know, these women have every right to choose who they want to be with. And I think that if women choose to be with dysfunctional men, you know, obviously they should bear the responsibility for how things turn out. They should bear that responsibility. Now, another point that I wanted to highlight from that particular interview with Obsidian is just the hypocrisy of a lot of the things that he was saying. You know, the first point that I want to raise in that area is this whole thing about focusing on physical attributes. And I'll get to your comments in a second after I make this particular point. Obsidian basically was saying, well, Black women are superficial, you know, because they just look at men's, you know, men and their physical characteristics. Like they emphasize you know, how attractive a man is over all other things. And then he talked about how these non-Black women tend to look at other factors over physical attraction. Now, while he was condemning Black women for having this, you know, this preference for attractive men, or like, you know, placing a priority on physical attributes, he turned around and admitted that he focuses primarily on physical attributes when selecting a woman to be with. And he thinks that there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's hypocrisy. You know, how are you criticizing Black women for choosing a mate primarily based on how they look, and then you turn around and you basically do the same thing? You know, that's an example of hypocrisy. Another example of hypocrisy is this, you know, this whole thing dealing with preferences. Now, Obsidian has gone through a litany of different preferences that he has. Like, he prefers women with no kids. He wants his woman to be in shape, and he constantly talks about women, you know, not being physically fit and being obese and all this and that. So he has all these different standards that he has for women. But yet and still, like, if a woman expresses her preference for a man of a certain height, or, you know, man of a certain physical characteristics, or other types of things like income and stuff like that, all of a sudden that's bad for a woman to have preferences, but it's fine for him to have preferences. And that's an example of hypocrisy. Another big example of hypocrisy with a lot of these guys in the manosphere is this whole thing dealing with interracial dating. You know, a lot of times they will badger and attack, you know, people like Crystal Karazin, or people like, you know, Successful Ladies Live, or, you know, all these other women in the over there that promote swirling and stuff like that. You know, they will attack those women. But these same men that attack these women for swirling have no problem swirling themselves. These same men that want to attack Crystal Karazin for idolizing white men are the same men that idolize white women. You know, you had this brother basically say, well, you can rebuild the Black community without the Black woman. You can get a white woman. And this guy also suggested that white women make better mothers. Like, he cited the example that, you know, a white woman gave us our first Black president and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But that's an example of hypocrisy. It's like these guys criticize these Black women for swirling, but yet a lot of these guys swirl themselves, or they advocate swirling. You know, they push for it. And, you know, you had some of these guys basically say, if you want to get married, you need to marry a white woman. You have Black male channels on here dedicated to drooling over white women and worshiping white women. But a lot of these same people want to criticize Black women for doing the same thing. And again, that's hypocrisy. You know, I noticed that Obsidian had some video up talking about Crystal Karazin, you know, a day or so ago, but the same guy was talking about, again, rebuilding the Black community without Black women. And, you know, he basically placed white women. He basically placed white women on a pedestal and stuff. So again, that's hypocrisy. So before I go to my next point, I want to check in with y'all to see what y'all are saying. Yeah, so Concrete Rose said, good point. There's a definite comparison that can be made between men cursing women out for being rejected and publicly shaming these women, you know, these women, you know, basically saying that there's a comparison between the shaming of women for their choices and cursing women out in public based on their rejection of a man. So, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, one of the key points that I made, because there is a comparison. They have basically turned YouTube into the public corner, you know, basically, like, you know, YouTube has become the corner. And when these guys are rejected, just like they're rejected on the corner, they curse women out. And these guys, they may not curse women out in the same kind of way, but they use their social media platforms to essentially do the same thing. So just bear with me a second. Now, Gun Streets raised the point about, he said this is funny how you never categorize it like that when it comes to women. Women do it. When women do it, basically, it's called constructive criticism, but when men do it, it's public shaming. Yeah, I mean, you do have women, and that's the point that I was making out at the beginning, just talking about how a lot of these women, make these generalizations and they badger black men or attack black men and all that kind of stuff based on, their experiences with a few black men. They label and attack black men and all that kind of stuff. And, so I think that there is some validity to what, Gun Street is talking about. Like a lot of these women, they are not offering any constructive criticism. They are just demonizing black men, excuse me. They're demonizing black men instead of offering real constructive criticism. So I think that that's a valid point. Concrete Rose said Obsidian is entertaining. She said it's like watching Comic View. But she said you can't take much stock into what he's saying. He is very entertaining. Like he's an amusing guy. Like he's hilarious. Like he should do some kind of stand up because he is funny, especially with the echo machine and all that kind of stuff. He's hilarious, man. And he seems like, somebody that's a cool person despite my disagreements with him on a lot of issues. So I could understand like why he has such a significant audience and stuff. So Amina said, thanks for interviewing Obsidian. I'm a huge fan of his channel. Shout out to Lashid for you. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and again, I want to remind y'all, if you are interested in joining a panel discussion right after this one, please let me know and I'll email you the link to the next live stream. Let me just go through some more. Yeah, I am going to have the open panel, Lashid, so I hope you can join if you're available. So yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it is like whining. A lot of this criticism of black women is like whining, especially the extent to which a lot of these guys do it. Like you have Obsidian, for instance. He has like these long shows. It's basically an all-day long show, like an 8-hour show. A lot of times where he's talking about Pookie and Ray Ray or complaining about this or that, dealing with black women and stuff like that. And let me be perfectly clear: I don't have any problem with black men, obviously talking about relationships, talking about issues involving relationships, challenges involving relationships, and all that kind of stuff. I think that it's important for black men to have a voice because, like in a larger society, there are very few venues for black men to express themselves. You do have hip hop music and all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, there is no like mainstream black male media this focused on men's issues. Like you really don't have it. And that's part of the reason why a lot of these people in the manosphere are so successful, because there is a void in this larger society to discuss a lot of those issues. So I think that there is, room for black men to discuss these types of issues dealing with relationships. Oftentimes, most of the discussions dealing with relationships, especially in the media, is dominated by women. Women shape those discussions. So I think that it is great that you have men expressing their views, but the problem is a lot of these men go beyond that and just become misogynistic, and just focus on bashing black women and in some cases bashing the black community instead of building relationships or, building the community. They are bashing the community and bashing black women in particular. All right, so I'm going to go through some more of your comments and then go to my next couple of points. Just bear with me a second. Hold on, y'all. I'm just looking through your comments now before I go to this next point that I wanted to raise. Again, shout out to Lashid for you. Shout out to Jay Smooth. All right, so I'm going to go on to the next point that I wanted to raise, and that's dealing with respectability politics. You know, and that's something that I noticed, like with people like Obsidian and people in the manosphere. Like, they focus primarily on what they see as personal responsibility. You know, they don't want to deal with racism in society. They don't want to deal with the systemic issues that create the problems in our community. Instead, what they want to do is place all the burden of society's problems on the Black woman's back. And they basically want to blame the Black woman for a lot of the community problems that we have. They want to blame the Black woman for the rise in the single parent household syndrome that we have in the Black community. They want to do all of this while at the same time they absolve the larger society of its responsibility to the Black community. You know, they absolve, you know, the police of police brutality. You know, they basically put all the blame of police brutality on single parent households. They place all the blame on all the problems that we experience as a people on single parent households. And then they place that problem primarily on the Black woman's back. And instead of like having a lot of like anger or fight or you know, outrage towards the system that's holding Black people down and that has oppressed Black people for hundreds of years, these people want to attack the Black woman. They don't have any fight in them when it comes to the white man. And this is a point that you know, Robert Perkins made. And for those of you who haven't seen this video, when I get a chance to, I'll post a link in the description box so that you could check out his video, because I think that he made a lot of valid points. And this is a point that even Cynthia G has made before about like how these guys, they have all this energy when it comes to Black women. They want to attack Black women. They have all this fight in them when it comes time to, you know, criticize Black women or to attack Black women. But these same people don't have any fight in them when it comes to the white man. You know, Obsidian basically said that he blames Black women for misery. You know, he talked about Black women causing all this misery. But at the same time, he said he had no problem with the white man. You know, he had no problem with white men and what white men do, even though it was the white man that enslaved us for hundreds of years, even though it was the white man that subjected us to Jim Crow for decades, even though it's the white man today through his police departments that kill our people, even though it's the larger economic system that deprives our people of economic opportunity. And it has resulted in, you know, massive wealth disparities, even though it's the larger society that has failed our children, you know, when it comes to education, failing schools with inferior resources compared to affluent white schools. Even though it's the system that subjects Black men in particular to harsher sentences, you know, a system that targets Black men for mass incarceration, while it turns a blind eye to some of the criminal activity of white men. It punishes Black men severely. White men are given second chances. White men are given lighter sentences. But these people in the so-called manosphere, they don't have any fight against that kind of system that creates that kind of injustice. They don't have any fight against the police that kill Black men with impunity and get away with it. They don't have any fight in them against that. No fight in them at all when it comes to those types of situations. In fact, some of these guys literally defend these police when they kill our Black people. They defend the police when they attack Black girls by saying that, you know, the girl shouldn't have been mouthy, the girl was bitchy and all that kind of stuff. That's what these guys do. Situations where you have grown-ass white men attacking Black girls, you have these pathetic people in the so-called manosphere justify that and explain it away. While when it comes to Black women, these people have no mercy at all. You know, they attack Black women. They bash Black women, but they don't bash or attack the white man that's subjecting our communities to these various forms of oppression. They have no fight in them when it comes to that. They have no fight in them, you know, even in light of the fact that the police disproportionately kill Black men. Black men make up only 6% of the US population. But as I said before, according to the Washington Post, Black men make up 40% of the unarmed people who were killed in 2015 by the police. But these guys in the manosphere have no fight in them when it comes to issues like that. In fact, they defend racists like Donald Trump. In fact, a lot of these guys in the manosphere support a Donald Trump, a man who's made all kinds of racist statements about Black people, a man who supports all kinds of racist policies when it comes to Black people. And all you have to do is go see my videos where I explain in detail about Donald Trump and his policies, Donald Trump and his racism. But yet these guys support this guy while they, you know, attack Black women, bash Black women. And I just think that that makes you look pathetic. It doesn't make you look like a man when a man is supposed to defend and protect his community. These guys defend and protect the people that attack the Black community. And I think that that just makes them look weak. And then with respect to this personal responsibility piece, they place all the burden on the Black woman, as if the Black woman had these children through immaculate conception. Like as if the Black woman gave birth to these children without any kind of man being involved at all. It takes two people to reproduce. We all know this. This is basic biology. But yet and still, these guys want to blame primarily Black women for the situation. They want to blame Black women for that. And I think that that's just fundamentally wrong, and it's illogical, because both the man and the woman bear responsibility for bringing children in the world. And, you know, another point that I want to make is this, you know, with respect to this out of wedlock births and stuff like that. I do think, you know, obviously that our community would be stronger if you have a nuclear family with a married man and woman and children, as opposed to parents in a situation where the mother is raising the kids alone and the father is absent. Obviously, that's not an ideal situation, but let's not pretend like all the problems that we have stem from, you know, the fact that you have single parent households. That's not the sole reason why we have problems like inner city violence. It's not the sole reason why our communities are flooded with drugs. It's not the reason why our schools are failing. It's not the reason why Black men receive these disproportionate sentences. It's not the reason why we have these massive wealth disparities in our community. Now, of course, it contributes to some problems, but it's not the sole cause of the problems. And also another thing that has to be taken into account is this, you know, even though you may have a situation where there is a single parent household, that doesn't mean that the man is completely absent from the household. There, you know, there's a study done by the Center for Disease Control that talks about how Black men are more involved in their children's lives than other groups of men. And people just want to ignore that study and pretend like, for the most part, the Black man is absent from the household. And that's not necessarily true. There are plenty of Black men who are, even though they are no longer with the mother of their children, they are still actively engaged in their children's lives. They are still there for their children. They regularly see their children. They mentor their children. They guide their children. So I think that too often we exaggerate the situation. Another point, I'm going to make a couple of points, then I'm going to read your comments, and then, you know, I'll open it up. You know, I'll do the open panel discussion for those who are interested. The other issue that I want to raise is this whole issue about defending Black women. You know, basically, Obsidian was complaining about Black men playing a role of community eunuch. And I want to talk about that for a second. But before I do that, I'm going to go to your comments real quick. I'm going to look at some more of your comments, and then I'm going to get into this issue of defending Black women. So just bear with me 1 second. So one issue that people are raising in the chat is this issue about like the media and like how, you know, people are saying, well, for the longest time, Black women went on mainstream media to bash Black men. You know, people have often cited Oprah. You know, they've cited other shows where they had Black women on, and they've cited various books that Black women have written, basically badgering and bashing Black men and stuff like that. And basically, Lasheed, for you, is disputing some of that stuff. I know that a while ago, Lasheed, for you, did a video where she went through all the titles of the Oprah Winfrey program, and she made the point that basically this narrative that people on Oprah were bashing Black men is a false narrative. And hopefully she'll be able to join this open panel discussion and share those views in more detail. But I noticed that people make that general point. You know, they talk about how, you know, people got on Oprah and they were badgering and attacking Black men, but they don't cite concrete examples and stuff. You know, they often just speak in vague general terms, just like when Obsidian did his interview. Like he talked, you know, he mentioned Essence, he mentioned, you know, some other sources, but he didn't like cite concrete examples of how those different media sources or networks badgered Black men or attacked Black men and stuff like that. So let's go into some more of your comments. And Concrete Rose basically said, well, she's seen Black men call for the community to be burned to the ground. Yeah, I mean, I've heard people say stuff like, I mean, similar type of comments. Like some of the guys in the Black manosphere, they don't care about the community. You know, why they complain about this problem of single parent households, they basically wash their hands of the Black community. And in a lot of ways, they are similar to those women over there that talk about Blackistan and leaving Blackistan. In a lot of ways, there are parallels between those two camps. Oh, yeah. So these are some of the shows, you know, Psycho mentioned some of these shows like Jenny Jones, Ricky Lake, and some other shows that basically, you know, people are saying, you know, those were shows where Black women basically got on programs and attacked Black men. So I'm really interested in hearing more about that. I want to hear more from Lasheed. For you, hopefully she'll be able to join the panel, and hopefully Psycho and others can join. So let's see what people are saying. Yeah, so the people that are debating about whether or not those shows attack Black men, you know, I would love to have y'all on here to cite, you know, actual examples of that. And, you know, I would be interested in hearing what Lasheed for you has to say in response to what you all are saying. So hopefully after this, you all can join the panel, and just let me know if you're interested. Just post your email address in the chat if you're interested, and I will copy it and send you the link to the next panel discussion. Yeah, so Psycho said a lot of those shows were designed to try and expose the DL brother down low. Basically, that means a brother that's on the down low and stuff. And basically, he said that that was used to promote this idea that a lot of black men were on the down low and stuff like that. So that's one example that Psycho cited of mainstream media being used to attack black men. Yeah, so Amina said Obsidian doesn't believe in racism and white supremacy. And she said, I know those things exist, but we can't keep using them as an excuse not to do better. Now, I definitely believe that you shouldn't use racism as an excuse not to strive or not to improve yourself. You know, obviously, I agree with that. Like, if I didn't agree with that, I wouldn't have, done better in my own personal life. Like, you know, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be a professional and all that kind of stuff if I was one to just sit around and complain about stuff and not try to improve my life. So obviously, I believe that people should strive for excellence regardless of their circumstances and regardless of the history of racism and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that we should use that as a crutch, obviously, but I think that a lot of times these guys in the so-called black manosphere, they turn a blind eye to obvious and blatant examples of racism. In fact, some of these guys defend racism. A lot of these guys, some of them promote racism against their own people, people like that Tommy Sotomayor coon, and these other people. Um, they promote a lot of negative stereotypes against their own people. They pretend like racism doesn't exist. You got this guy Obsidian basically saying, well, he doesn't have any problem with white men and all that kind of stuff. But yet and still he has all this venom and anger towards black women. Despite that vicious history of oppressing black people, this guy has no problem with that. But yet he wants to focus on attacking black women and criticizing black women. I think there's something wrong with that. So just bear with me a second. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. So I'm gonna go through a few more of your comments and then I'm gonna go into this point about defending black women. Shout out to Garage Autonomous. Yeah, Garage, if you're interested in joining the discussion, please let me know as well. It would be great to have a panel with you on it as well, talking about these different issues. Um, just bear with me a second. So Gun Street said that the problem here is that black women refuse to acknowledge the part that they played in the destruction of the black family. And this is how Tommy Sotomayor's and Obsidians are born. Yeah, so Gun Streets, I would be interested in having you join the panel. I want to hear your views more on this. Like, why do you say that black women help destroy the black family? Like, can you cite examples of how black women help destroy the black family? Yeah, so I see I got a troll here. Let me go ahead and hide whatever he had to say. Yeah, somebody keeps talking about stats. I'm like, what stats are you talking about? Shout out to Gab Talk Media. He said good points regarding the larger problems. So Garage Autonomous said these unselected males always turn to white supremacist machine as an apparatus to back up their point of view. And that's the reason why a lot of these guys are conservatives. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like all these talking points, as somebody else pointed out, I think it was Renee, like on the last live stream that I had to take down, she basically pointed out how a lot of these guys run with white supremacist talking points. And one of the main white supremacists, or, you know, you could use it more polite terms, like conservatives, like one of their main talking points when they're talking about the problems in the Black community is, you know, the single parent household situation. They use that to basically blame Black people for the problems in the Black community. They blame all the problems that exist in the Black community on Black pathology, and they basically claim that personal responsibility is the answer to all of our problems. And, you know, that's just pure nonsense. And I could do a whole video just on that alone, on, you know, personal responsibility, politics versus, you know, the demand for social justice. Like a lot of these guys, they don't want to deal with the systemic issues that create our problems, but instead they want to place all the blame on the single parent household and children not being raised properly and all that kind of stuff. You know, a whole video could be done just on that subject alone. So I'm going to ban this person from my channel. Like, just to let you all know, like, this channel is not a safe place for trolls, man. Trolls don't get any respect over here. And just to let you all know, some comments are automatically hidden. And it's not me hiding your comments. YouTube automatically hides certain comments that people make. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm taking down these email addresses. I'm copying the email addresses that people have sent or posted. So just bear with me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I have all these email addresses in one place so I can send out these emails. Okay, just bear with me a second. And the thing is, like when I unhide some of these comments, it skips me around in the chat. So just bear with me a second. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into much detail about you all's back and forth dealing with these shows. It'll be great for you all to just come on here and talk about that, you know, those issues, hash them out here in the next, you know, on the next live stream. So let's see. See if there's some other points that I want to touch on before I move on to my next point. So Park mentioned that Obsidian had an interview with Jared Taylor, and Jared Taylor is a white supremacist, man. There's no other explanation or any other description that you can use for that guy. I would be interested in seeing that particular interview myself. Okay, so Gab Talk, I have your email address. I will send you the link once I'm done with this live stream. Other people, if you're interested, provide your email addresses. You can or if you don't want to post your email address, you can email me at newpossibilitiesblog@yahoo.com. Again, that's newpossibilitiesblog@yahoo.com, and I'll be glad to send you the link to the Hangout. Okay. Let me just see if there are any other comments that I want to touch on. Just bear with me a second. Oh, I see. Even though I'm not familiar with your channel, oh, Sheila, shout out to you. I'll send you the link as well so that you can join the discussion. I hope you're not a troll. Oh, man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you all the link after this Hangout, and we're going to have a separate Hangout that's going to be an open discussion about a lot of these issues. All right, so let me get into the next point that I wanted to touch on, and that's with respect to this issue of defense of Black women. Now, Obsidian used this term community eunuchs when this issue was raised about defending Black women. He basically said that there are these guys that are expected to defend Black women, but Black women don't want to be with these guys, basically. So they're like eunuchs, protecting the Black community, but they're not in relationships with Black women because Black women are rejecting them, and et cetera, et cetera. So he uses that term. And basically his point was that his basic point was that he's not going to defend or protect a woman that he's not in a relationship with. So if that's not a woman that he's sexually involved with, or a woman that's a member of his family, he has no obligation to protect and defend them. And he thinks that Black men as a whole should take that kind of attitude. And I wanted, in response to that, I basically asked him, well, would you want somebody to defend your mother if she was being attacked by some racist, or to defend your sister or your girlfriend or something like that if they were attacked by some racist or whatever? And, I basically made it clear, so in response to that, he basically said, well, my mother was married to a strong man that, has the means to protect her. And he cited the examples of his sisters, for instance, being married to men who are protectors and providers that will protect them, if they're involved in these types of situations. And I said, well, what about the situation where that man is not there and some other man is there that could potentially defend your mother or your sister? Would you want that man to just walk on by, as you say, and do nothing in the face of that brutality? And he danced all around that issue. Like, he didn't really say, well, yeah, I would want them to defend him, or no, they can just keep on walking and let this violence happen to, my loved one. And I just think that that's, that kind of attitude is ridiculous. I think that our obligation to protect our women is not some sexual transaction. It's not like some kind of situation involving tricking, like where a man is paying some woman some money in exchange for sex. It's not that kind of exchange. We have a larger responsibility to our community. And many communities and nations understand this. That's why they have armies, to defend their nations from outsiders. so that they can defend themselves, so that they can have a nation. You can't have a nation or any community for that matter if that community or that nation is not prepared to defend itself. And that obligation to defend is not based on some sexual exchange. It's based on the need to survive. It's based on the need to thrive as a community. That's what it's based on. And that's what these guys don't get. It's like they operate on a base type of level. They operate on a low frequency. They're all preoccupied and concerned with their ability to have sex with some women, or their rejection, women rejected them. That's what they're all focused on. That's what they're fixated on. These people have no concern for the community. They have no concern for Black women. And they epitomize what the brother Malcolm X talked about when he said Black women are the least respected and protected members of the society, because that's what these guys do. They disrespect Black women, and then they get on social media and they laugh about Black women being attacked, and they basically say, walk on by. This guy was joking when it came to violence against Black women. He was citing this song, Walk On By, and basically saying that that's what he would do in a situation where a Black woman is being attacked. To me, that doesn't project manhood. That projects cowardice. And at the same time, that he's, basically excusing white racism, ignoring white racism, downplaying white racism. This guy is quick to basically take the white man's position, basically say, well, the Black woman is the cause of that particular attack. She shouldn't have been mouthy. She shouldn't have been bitchy. She should have, just fell back and been more submissive, basically, instead of being all up in some guy's face. That's what these guys say. And they use that to justify violence against Black women. We've seen all these examples, like that police officer that threw this girl across a room, or that pig that punched a girl at a mall. An 11-year-old girl, if I recall correctly. You had these pathetic Black men on here defending these white guys that committed these acts. You had the situation where a police officer manhandled a teenage girl who was wearing a bathing suit at a pool party. And these Black guys basically get on here and they attack the Black women and Black girls who were attacked. Like that Black woman that was punched by that Asian store owner, or the Black woman that was choked out. They defend these Asians, for instance, that do these things, and they badmouth the Black woman. And yet they expect these same Black women to respect them. Yet they expect these same Black women to be interested in them when they have shown no respect for Black women, when they don't even have manly type of traits. One of the fundamental traits of manhood is protection, is strength. And these guys don't project any of that. And yet and still they think that they are entitled to be with Black women. How are you going to be entitled to be with Black women when you can't even be a Black man, when you can't even do what real men do? Real men defend their communities. They don't defend their, women just based on some sexual relationship. When people sign up, for instance, for the Navy and the Army and all that kind of stuff, the Air Force, they're signing up to defend the United States, the United States empire or whatever. And we can talk about whether or not that's right to join the white man's army or whatever, but they're signing up to protect their nation and to protect their people. They're not signing up, in hopes of some sexual gratification or, some sexual exchange. We have a responsibility to our community. We have a responsibility to protect the women in our community, the children in our community, the community as a whole. If we are to be viewed as men, we have a responsibility to build in our community, build institutions, build businesses, carry on a legacy for the next generation. That's our responsibility as men. But a lot of these guys, they shrink from that responsibility. And what they do is they demonize their own women. And at the same time, they don't have any kind of energy or strength to protect their own community. And yet and still these same people expect respect from Black women. So, you know, my whole point about like these people basically Obsidian was saying, well, you know, well, my loved ones have strong men in their life to protect them. Those strong men are not going to always be with your loved one. We need to have a collectivist type of mentality instead of this individual type of mentality. If those strong men are not available, like those, for instance, the husbands of your sisters are not available, or your father's not there to protect your mother, then the burden for protection falls on the men that are present. And if the men don't protect that woman, they are cowards. Just like, I mean, it reminds me of the situation involving Emmett Till, where those people basically went to Emmett Till's house, you know, the house that he was staying in the summertime down south or whatever, and they said, bring him out here. And you had these people basically do that. They brought him out there, and the brother got lynched. They didn't defend that brother. They didn't protect that brother. They failed in their responsibility as men, as a people. And anytime a Black man sits back and watches a white man, or any man for that matter, attack a woman without justification, they are just like those people that sat back and allowed those people to lynch Emmett Till. That's how I see them. They are cowards. They are weak. And they are not worthy of respect. They are not worthy of the title man. But yet they call themselves a manosphere. So, so yeah, let me get into this last point that I wanted to highlight in this particular live stream. And that's this. Somebody raised a question, you know, one of my subscribers said, well, ask Obsidian about this. Like, ask him if he believes that he can advance the Black community without the Black woman. So I asked him about this, and he basically said that, yes, you can advance the Black community without the Black woman. He basically said that the Black woman can be replaced by a white woman or some other non-Black woman. And basically his argument was that a Black man having, you know, children with a white woman or some other non-Black woman, that produces a Black child, so the Black community can continue to thrive without the Black woman. And I think that that is absolutely ridiculous. You know, I think that is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not one of these people that say that biracial children are not Black. I know that there are plenty of people that hold that view. And I'm not one of these people that have something against biracial people or anything like that. But I will say this, like if somebody is raised in a household where their father has no respect for Black women, where their father views a white woman as superior and all that kind of stuff, as a better option, for instance, then that father is going to pass on those values to those children. And more likely than not, those young men are going to go out here and get with a white woman when they are of age. And what you're going to basically have a situation of is a situation where Blackness gets diluted to the point that eventually those kids aren't even recognizable as Black. You know, eventually the Blackness is completely diluted to the point that it's not even recognizable as a Black community anymore, where it's a virtually white community. Like you have some people that have such a small percentage of Blackness in them that they don't even look Black. And that's the situation that you will have. And also it is the mother who raises, you know, who basically guides children. The mother is the first teacher of the children. Do you really want white women being the mothers of your civilization? Do you really want your historical enemies, women, to be guiding your children? Is that what you want for your people? Do you think that will empower your people? Do you think it will empower your people for white women and white families to inherit the wealth that black men build? Do you really believe that? And, I think that it is sickening that you had these guys basically idolizing the white woman, idolizing the same white woman that lied on black men time and time again. Lied about black men sexually abusing them or raping them or looking at them funny and stuff like that. We saw that with the Emmett Till situation, as I mentioned earlier, where he was accused of whistling at a white woman. And because of that, because of that false allegation, that brother was beaten beyond recognition. We've all seen the pictures of Emmett Till. These people beat him beyond recognition and threw his body in a river. But that's the woman that y'all want to place on a pedestal. You have all these countless situations where you had these white women lie on black men. And because of that lie that was told, not only were these black men lynched, but you had whole towns burned to the ground based on lies that came from the mouths of these white women that you guys idolize so much. Towns like Rosewood burned to the ground over some lie. Tulsa, Oklahoma burned to the ground because of some lie. But yet and still, these are the women that you place on a pedestal. These are the women that you say can replace your black woman. The same women that raised up the racists that were our slave masters. The same women that raised up the men that would subject us to Jim Crow and lynch us and all that kind of stuff. That's the woman you people idolize. That's the woman that's supposed to replace the black woman. The woman that's featured in all those pictures of lynchings of black men, while black bodies are hanging from trees with nooses around their necks. It's the white woman standing by the side of her white man, celebrating the destruction of black life. That's the woman you want to be laid down with? That's the woman that you want to rebuild your civilization with? Have you lost your mind, black man? Have you lost your mind? But this is how some of our people think, man. They have been so thoroughly programmed and brainwashed by this white man's world. They've been taught to worship this white woman. They've been taught that she is the epitome of beauty, like she is the standard of beauty, that her hair is the standard of what beautiful hair looks like. Her hair, her complexion is the standard for what good and beautiful skin looks like. Lighter skin is better. That's the mentality that our people have. Some of our people have. They view thinner noses and thinner lips as more attractive than African features. They've been programmed to idolize this white woman, to place her on some kind of pedestal and stuff. This is the woman that you want to replace your black woman with. It's like, and then these people are so enamored by whiteness, so blinded by whiteness, that they even judge their own women by that white standard. So the closer a black woman is to that white standard, the more acceptable she is in the minds of some of these lost Negroes. The more beautiful she is in the minds of the lost Negro. The lighter her skin is, the straighter her hair is, the longer her hair is, in these guys' minds, the more beautiful she is. And then these same guys that have placed this white woman on a pedestal, these same guys that have made her the standard of beauty, then they want to complain when they see black women trying to pursue that standard by getting weaves and all that kind of stuff. It's a sickness that infects the men and the women, infects their minds, holds their minds hostage. And then, you know, this guy, Obsidian, made this point about, you know, about Obama. He basically said, well, you know, it was white women, you know, a white woman that gave us our first black president. And he basically used that as an example to say that, you know, we can rebuild the black community without the black woman. The fact of the matter is, Obama didn't get to that position because he had some white mother raised him. That's not the reason why he excelled in life and all that kind of stuff. You know, the thing is, like when you look at Obama and his election, you have to look at white racism as well. If he was not part white, a lot of these white voters, they wouldn't have been able to identify with him. You know, they were able to identify with him. And they were able to identify with him because even these so-called white liberals, they are still struggling with issues of racism. They saw themselves in Obama because they saw his white mother and his white grandparents. They could relate to them. That made Obama relatable to them. The fact that his skin was lighter made him relatable to these white people. The fact that he, you know, spoke the, you know, standard English and all that kind of stuff, you know, spoke quote unquote good English, you know, and was articulate. That made him relatable to these people. The fact that he didn't use Ebonics except for when he was just around black people, that made him relatable to these white people. So that is in part the reason why he became, you know, the first black elected, you know, first black president. Is not because his mother was, you know, some stellar mother that's better than the black mother. It's not because of that. You have had plenty of educated, you know, competent, successful black men who were raised by black women who, when just looking at their resume and their experience and their speaking skills and their competency and all that kind of stuff, they could have been president as well. But it's because of this society and this legacy of racism and its preference for lighter, you know, black people and biracials. That's part of the reason why they weren't elected president before Barack Obama. That's something that has to be factored in. So to use him as an example of this white woman being such a great mother over black women is just absurd. It doesn't take into account societal preference for biracials over full African Americans. It doesn't take into account the fact that white people are more able to identify and relate to Obama because he had a white mother and some white grandparents and he was raised by those white people. So, you know, that's something that has to be taken into account, man. A black woman can never be replaced by a white woman, period. And I could go on and on about that, but I won't. So I'm going to check some of your comments before I sign off. And again, if you're interested, please email me your email address, and I'll be glad to have you on. My email address, again, is newpossibilitiesblog@yahoo.com. I see that a couple of people have emailed me, or not emailed me, but posted their email addresses in the chat room. I appreciate it. I would just, you know, on the next panel, just post the link for people to join, but I've had situations where trolls have hopped on the panels and I don't want to have that happen again. So for that reason, I can't just post the link in the description box or in the chat because I don't want to deal with trolls. So let me see what folks are saying real quick. Yeah, some comments are so ridiculous. I'm not going to even respond to them. And I think I'm going to hide this person from my channel. All right, let's see. And they're really going back and forth about those TV talk shows and stuff. All right, let's see. And then you have somebody by the name of Queen Sagittarius. Say, basically reach out to Lashid for you and say, well, you're defending a group of people that are destroying you. And she basically said you need to hang up that race soldier cape and go live your best life. I mean, that's the kind of mentality that a lot of these women that are going their own way have. A lot of these women that talk about escaping Blackistan and all that kind of stuff. Shout out to Just My 4 Cents for your donation. I truly appreciate it. So Just My 4 Cents said there's a reason why my, tax pays for police. So men like myself would not have to be fighting in the streets. Obviously it's the police department's job to protect people. But there are situations where the police are not around, where, to wait around for the police can end up in a situation where somebody just ends up being dead, where a woman can be killed by a man or something like that. There are situations where the police just aren't around. And I do believe that one way to protect somebody is to call the police in these types of incidents if you see some violence. But often you have situations where instead of contacting the authorities or intervening yourself, a lot of times these guys just take out their cell phones and just start recording stuff. They start putting up their cell phones, trying to record something and all that kind of stuff. And, that's not what manhood looks like, man. All right. So, yeah, I don't have your email address, Lashid. So if you can post your email address, I'll send it to you. Or you can just email me your address and I'll send you the link. Again, shout out to Just My 4 Cents for your donation. And I encourage you all to make donations if you're able to support this channel. As you all know, YouTube has basically eliminated, they virtually have eliminated AdSense. It's there to some extent, but, it's cut back so much. It is virtually non-existent for channels like mine that talk about controversial subjects. Yeah, so I want to see if anybody's making a point that I should highlight. And I think some of these people are just trolling, man. They like coming here under fake names and all that kind of stuff instead of just coming here as their real selves. But it is what it is. It comes with the territory, I suppose. Shout out to Miss Legit. All right, so I don't want to drag this out too much longer. I will be up in a few minutes with the open panel discussion. I want to thank the people that sent me their email addresses. Again, if you are interested in joining the panel, please email me. I'll wait probably like 5 or 10 minutes before I start the next panel. Shout out to Concrete Rose. Thanks for your donation. Concrete Rose said, good stream, brother. I truly appreciate it. Concrete Rose was one of the people that asked me to do this stream. She said, well, you had Obsidian on your program. I want to hear what you had to say about a lot of the things that he had to say. So I want to thank you for making that recommendation. Yeah, shout out to Gun Streets. Thanks for your comment. He said, great stream. Okay, let me see. Okay, so Prophet of Thought series said that he emailed me on YouTube or inboxed me on YouTube. I mean on Facebook. Yeah, I'll check that out. Shout out to True Royal. Yeah, I had a great trip to Vegas. It was for work. And it was only for like a couple of days. So I didn't really get a chance to really enjoy Vegas. I mean, it's like I've been to Vegas so many times for work. But each time I go, I don't really get to hang out and enjoy it as much as I would like. But I did get a little bit of time to hang out. It was cool. And also, True Roy, I want to thank you again for your business. You know, thank you for purchasing some of my artwork. I truly appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for doing so. I truly appreciate your business. Shout out to Westwood. Yeah, so I'm going to sign out. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Again, I will be back with another live stream in about 10 to 20 minutes. So I hope that you all can join me. Again, if you are interested in participating in that live stream, please email me at newpossibilitiesblog@yahoo.com. So with that, peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in about 10 to 20 minutes. Peace.